Yeah, Rudd's work has been funded by, until last night, the National Institutes of Health. Yeah, the National Science Foundation and other sources. And he, among his many honors at a young age, includes the American Political Science Association Theodore Lowy Award for the best article in the Policy Studies Journal. So Rob's had a great academic career in addition, but avoided going into politics. So, yeah, so his father's okay.
To watch me, he decided.
It's in a different way. And finally, Sarah Stanton got her MPA degree in 2010. Rob got his MPA degree, by the way, in 2009, and his PhD in 2012. Something like that. Yeah. I looked it up.
I'm glad someone knows.
Yeah, good. And finally, Sarah Stanton got her MPA here in 2010, currently serves as the Undersecretary of Economic Strategies in Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development in the Healy School of Administration. When did we start calling them when did we start including lieutenant governors in our names of the governor's offices? I think it started with Rader, didn't it? We didn't talk about the Dukakis.
We had Gary, we had.
Yeah, so you had several lieutenant governors. No, this is no offense to lieutenant governors, but we started this naming convention in the last
Be careful, Juan and I are pretty hardcore.
Just sort of about commenting. So anyway, I'll get on with it. Anyway, before entering state government in 2023, Sarah served for certain varying degrees of various positions in state and local government, especially for 20 years. A range of offices such as manager of town Bedford, town manager of town Bedford, budget director for the city of Cambridge, and finance director and budget officer for the city of Salem, where she worked on Denver Fiscal. She also is an adjunct lecturer at Northeastern, Boston University, and Merrimack College. So we have 3 stellar alumni, all influenced by Mike Dukakis. So I just, short but sweet, give us your Mike Dukakis as a teacher story, Mike Dukakis as a mentor story. Sarah, I'll go with you first.
Sure. So there's so many stories, really. When I started in graduate school, I was working full-time in local government, which you should all do. Everyone should do service in local government. It's the most impactful. You can feel it. And it's a good shield from the federal government right now, if you're interested. I was the chief procurement director in Woburn. At the time, I was trying to think about what my next move would be. And Professor Dukakis was so great. And he kept saying, Sarah here works in local service. Sarah here is working in public service. And I said, the mayor of Salem has asked me if I want to come be chief financial officer. Can I put you down as a reference? And so he called now Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll and said, Kim, it's going to be the biggest mistake of your life if you don't hire him. And so the lieutenant governor called me afterwards and said, I was going to hire you anyway, but man, Governor Dukakis did a real hard sell. And so I was thinking on my way here, and I have a group text in my phone of friends from graduate school. One is now the Secretary of Energy in Maine. One is the head of endowment at Harvard. And the other is a political consultant in Chicago. And our group text is called the Key Player List, because it was something that we learned in our class with Governor Dukakis, but you always have to have your key player list. So I said to the group today, we were reading the Boston Globe article, which all of us cried because it was so lovely. And I said, what are some of our favorite memories? And we had some few big ones, like always buy generic. It's not very important. Be in public service for the work, not for your social life. Always remember you want to be below the fold, not above the fold, which is something I think about every day now in my new job. And then we talked a lot around the key player list, and each one of us on this group text had emails and guidance from Professor Dukakis, and it's so important. It was why we all love public service, of this incredible advice about our lives and our work and how we manage difficult conversations. And it's all of these emails that all of us were sharing, and it would be, advice on the job or advice on something to avoid, but then some great note around how proud he was or how important it is to keep your head down in this work. And I had my first baby last year after a very long time. And the last note I had from Professor Dukakis was, and remember, it's important to be home for dinner by 6. And I'm missing it tonight. He's 1, so I think it's okay. But I think about that every day. So in addition to always, thinking about the lessons I learned in the class, or what a fierce advocate he was for me to work and pursue public service, I think my most favorite part of having Professor Dukakis was how proud he was of his family and how important his family was to him and how public service was second to being in a happy home. And I work in state government. We're getting kicked to shit, for lack of a better term, by the federal government right now. And it's been long and hard days. And I'm so thankful to come home to a family. And I keep reminding myself how important it is, family first, work second. And I don't think I would be thinking about that as regularly if not for having that experience. So I'm deeply grateful. And I do buy generic when I can.
Sure. A tough one to follow. So, Governor Dukakis, he didn't realize it at the time, but he actually helped me work through like an existential crisis I was having in graduate school. So when I started at Northeastern, I was also working full-time at the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. I was working in the Bureau of Substance Use Disorder Services. And what would pretty much happen with my days is I would work all day. I would hop on the train per his advice, come to Northeastern, take my night classes, rinse and repeat for several months. And a couple months into my time here at Northeastern, I met Chris and John and David Roachford, and I realized I also had an affinity for the academic lifestyle. I started to get my research agenda up and going. I was accepted into the PhD program. And it started to become clear to me that if I kept my foot in both worlds, I wasn't going to be successful at either of these things, that my aspirations and desire to do good, I was going to shortchange them unless I made a commitment to either my work at the department or my work in academia. And so I believe it was the summer of 2011, I was really struggling with this. I had picked up a class at Northeastern, and one afternoon, I stopped by the governor's office, and he said, what are you up to today? What are you doing? And I thought, well, what am I not doing? I'm trying to, keep this job afloat and work on a dissertation. And he said, let's hop on the train. We're going to go to the National Conference of State Legislatures, which was actually being held in the Seaport that summer. So, of course, Governor Dukakis telling you you're going to take a train ride to go to the National Conference of State Legislatures is almost like your parents telling you you don't need to go to school today. We're going to see the Red Sox or the Bruins today. It was, to say I was ecstatic would be an understatement. So I ran back to my office, found my best coat, got back, and he said, okay, let's go. And we hopped on the train at Ruggles. And as a commuter, the first thing I would always do when I would get on a train was I would look for an empty seat. It was just my instinct, that you can find a seat, 2 seats even better, so we can sit next to each other, and we're going to sit down. So I got on a fairly crowded train at Ruggles, and laser focused, I sat right down at a seat that happened to have one other empty seat next to it. And the moment I sat down and looked up, I realized that he wasn't sitting next to me. In fact, he had barely even made it several steps into the train because he was walking up and down the car, picking up trash. He had piles of newspapers, bottles, wrappers, almost hugging them in his arms. So I'm like a jerk sitting in this seat, looking at a former governor and presidential nominee picking up trash on a crowded train while I'm just sitting there, like a dud. And of course, I got up and proceeded to pick up trash alongside him, and we had an incredible day together. But that experience actually taught me something really important, and that is, and I think Juan alluded to this in the documentary as well, it's that public service transcends the public sector. It's great. And I, would encourage all of you to pursue careers in the public sector and government, but it doesn't stop there. It's the decisions you make every day about how you want to give back to your community that shape who you are as a public servant. And in a weird way, that experience sort of cemented to me that I didn't have to follow the lead of my dad and the governor to have a positive impact on people's lives, that I had a skill set that was uniquely well suited for academia, and I could do that and give back to people I care about in the communities that I care about in a meaningful way. So had it not been for that fated train ride, I don't know I would have pulled the trigger on pursuing the PhD full time. And I don't know that I would have the job I have now, where I get to interact with young people every day who have gone on to do incredible things. And also through my research, inform some important policy debates. So very grateful for that. And glad I got to share it with you today.
Awesome. Tough to follow these two, but I will try. So I think Sarah puts it really nicely, like the three areas where I think for me also, Governor Dukakis has really been instrumental. So one is really, your personal life, your family, right? Like no politics on Sunday, prioritizing dinner with your family, every night at 6 p.m. And just the love and admiration he has for his wife, Kitty, and his children, John, and the others. I think that's something that, unfortunately, in our busy lives, just always gets in the way. But it's so important to try and prioritize when always. Period. So that's definitely something you don't see from a lot of folks in government or really any industry. But I think it should be at the forefront for all of us. Two, I think academically, I mean, my gosh, all the case studies, the folks the governor would introduce you to or bring to class, or the stories he would share, right? It's like you're just almost, I'm living, especially being in the governor's office now, I'm living through all the stories and experiences, Governor Dukakis had. So it's just so unique to see that. And, I think two things that I will never forget that the governor drilled in me was, one, you need to grow up to be, a progressive Democrat who knows how to count. Who knows how to, balance budgets, deliver services for people, and deliver good government, because it's so important. And I think we all see right now how vital that is. And three, I think just professionally, my gosh, for me, I think every professional decision I have made since the time I met Governor Dukakis, it's like, when I get a job offer, or an issue comes up, or a good or bad thing is creeping up, the first person I've always relied on is Governor Dukakis. Like, what on God's green earth am I going to do? And he, for the most part, is able to give it to you straight, and really help you navigate what you should be doing for yourself, but also for your community and for the service of others. So that's what I would say for sure. So props to you, Gov. You've been awesome.
Actually, I am curious. All three of you had him in a classroom setting. What's he like as a classroom teacher? Was that like, if I don't?
I mean, sharp as hell.
I know.
You could read and prep and feel like you were ready. Feel like you had this, like, you're working on an answer. And he just is, which is why he was an incredible governor. He's always 3 steps ahead. And sometimes those 3 steps are actually 400 steps ahead. Just so exceptionally bright. I remember having the first class and, calling my dad on the way home because he couldn't believe that I had, Governor Dukakis for a professor. And I'm like, how's it going? And I said, Dad, I'm worried I'm an idiot. Like, I don't know how I got into graduate school, because he just is just so exceptionally bright. It was just everything he was reading and remembering and connecting. It just blew me away. It still does. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, so one of the courses I teach at Bentley is a healthcare policy course, and the course is sort of designed to bring in various experts from academia and the government. We've had everyone from former CDC directors to heads of Centers for Medicaid to leading health policy researchers. I would argue that Governor Dukakis was one of the foremost national experts on healthcare policy. I mean, his capacity to explain the complexities of the system are frankly unparalleled, in my opinion. The other thing I would say is he was radically ahead of the curve. So at Bentley, we talk a lot about, this will resonate with you, Northeastern Huskies, but we talk a lot about experiential learning and community-based learning and applied learning. He didn't just integrate it in his class. It was the entire class. So you were effectively taking a course that was run as if you were working for the governor to champion a policy initiative. So some of the papers I wrote for his courses, it wasn't just that you were coming up with a policy proposal that he read. You were then pitching that proposal to people working in government and sort of feeling out whether or not stakeholders would be eager to advance something like this. So, you know, to think about that in like contemporary academic context, it was really a radical way to run a class, and I think incredibly effective.
Yeah, I would add to that too. I think that was so unique, and like, you know, it's like you're putting I did my research paper on immigration reform. And so like the governor, you know, it's like 30, 35 kids in the class. And for every single one of the students, he'd be willing to like introduce you to whoever you thought would be worthwhile for you to maximize what you were actually putting together as a policy proposal. So like taking the time to actually help make the introductions for each individual student and you know, tell you what you should be, you know, the policy recommendation, the direction you should be going. It was such a unique experience, and really really the best course I ever had at Northeastern. I'm sorry, Professor Ports, I loved your course as well. It was so unique. It was so unique. And also, I think like one thing that really stands out too is just the coalition building that the governor would drive home after each course, and you know, through each case study, just like the power of coalition building in all aspects of what you're doing, right? Speaker DeLeo can talk about that at healthcare reform here in the state not too long ago, right? How did we achieve that? Through coalition building, getting the business community, labor, the legislature, everybody on board. And I think that is just so unique and something that you typically wouldn't learn in a classroom, but that's something you drilled in you, and you really were able to take that away from the course. Yeah.
By the way, for the students here, I just want to make a quick comment that unlike famous people who teach at other universities, he graded his own papers.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because it was hard. Yeah.
We still don't have the North-South Railway.
Very soon, Governor.
Give opportunity for the students here to ask questions of our alumni, and then I'll bring our filmmakers in and ask questions of them. So any questions from the audience for our alumni? Yeah. Any questions you might have, or recommendations for them that since your time in Northeastern. We have how many grad students do we have here? Okay, so we have some of the MPA program, MPP program. We have undergraduates. Cheap advice you want to offer them now that you've been out for anywhere from 20 years now almost.
15, let's take it. Take advantage of the time and the network that you have here. I teach part-time. I am always happy to make a connection, to send an email, to connect someone, because all of the professors I had at Northeastern were gracious to do that with me. You know, I have an email to this day that Professor Dukakis had sent to Senator Kennedy, and he was like, "Ted, meet Sarah." And I was like, "Oh my God." To be fair, he responded. It was unbelievable. But I was so gracious. I was so appreciative to be able to ask questions and get answers. And I think you never have it as good, even though graduate school, if you're working full time, is hard. It's a grind. You eat everything with one hand in the car and the train, but you never have the network that you'll have right now, likely again, all in the same room. Take advantage of the network that you have, and don't be afraid to ask for jobs. I mean, half the reason we're all here is because we asked people for advice and we got good advice from it. Also, the state is hiring and cities and towns are hiring. So if you're not asking one of us for a job at some point, you're making a huge mistake.
Yeah, I would echo that. I would say so much of what is going to shape your career trajectory is what happens after and before class. So interactions with your professors during office hours, the network you build among your classmates and friends, the network you build beyond Northeastern, these connections matter a ton. And I will also hasten to add, those of you who are in the grad program or considering like jobs in academia, your degree is worth a lot. it means something to graduate from Northeastern University. We have 3 faculty in my department alone that are Northeastern graduates. And so I will say that reputationally, you're seen as people who can get things done. And I think a lot of that can be traced to the legacy of Governor Dukakis, but also, the faculty who are here today. So take advantage of that.
I would say a few things. One, definitely network, take advantage of the opportunities you have here, grab coffees with everybody and their brother. One thing you'll find out, people love talking about themselves. So just like ask them questions and, they will just talk at you for some time, but fully like take that in and maximize, the time and the opportunity you have to sit down with some of these folks. One, and then 2, especially for the undergrad folks, the younger folks in the room, like take as much an opportunity as you can to do co-ops, to do internships. My gosh, when I was here, I was maybe I shouldn't have done this as much as I did, but I was like doing internships while in classes, and then I'd go on co-op, and then in the summers and the fall's campaign season. For any folks interested in getting into public service, government, campaigns is the best way to get your foot in the door, and it's a great way for you to get started. And the relationships you build and the experience that you get is so unique, and you're able to leverage that to go on and do whatever else you're going to do, right? Like Sarah was on our kitchen cabinet for Lieutenant Governor Tim Driscoll's campaign. So we go way back. We've been through the gauntlet for years now.
Also, our first connection was.
I was an intern in Salem City Hall. Yep. While I was in class here, actually. So I'd literally drive from down here all the way up to Salem to just intern. So I was a little too committed. I should have enjoyed my time a little bit in college, but that's all to say, like, take advantage of the opportunities you have here right now, and also be a college kid. Enjoy life a little bit. Life's short.
I want to get our filmmakers up here and for Aaron, just for a few minutes. Actually, because I want to ask, I'm curious about where does film come from? What was the inspiration for the film?
The 2016 election. I mean, in a way, I think, we had wanted to work on a project together, and we're considering a number of ideas. And I think that like getting a little bit back in touch with what I would call the kind of opposite of what felt like was the prevalent norm at the time. I don't know. At least for me, that's really, I was worried. I care a lot about the future of our country, and and I'm not a politician. And so I just care so much about the example that Governor Dukakis set, and I think there's just so much to learn.
Yeah, and I think, just from our conversations with you, Governor, the way that you think about government and where you've kind of put it, and the importance of, people like you guys, and, hopefully you guys in the future, really being public servants in the true sense, of being sort of guardians or, custodians of democracy. It was really inspiring to us, and, to have the doors opened up, to be able to, spend time, and then, as I said earlier, to meet, and get to know Juan more, and then see him kind of ascend up the ladder, and actually go, out campaigning with you. It was definitely the fuel that I think kept us going along, especially, when you have a pandemic, like right in the middle of filming. I think we both felt, as Aaron said, just in these times, what can we say, or how can we kind of enter the conversation, and kind of make people think.
How did Juan get to be the center of the film?
I don't think I am. I think the governor's just an extra.
Seriously, how did that angle?
We kind of always imagined this to be a very short, what I call a distilled character portrait. And to do that, to kind of get the wheels going, we had to go through Juan. And so we started to get to know him that way. And, just, it was literally like the comment about the before and after class. It was like chit chat with, so hey, Juan, what are you up to? And, getting to know him a little bit through these other ways. And we just kept going, what an interesting, inspiring person. And, yeah, he's got charisma, right? So, that should go. Yeah. And so then we just kind of thought, well, how is your story evolving too, over the,
Yeah, I mean, and filmmaking is, especially like documentary filmmaking, you have ideas of what you think your film is going to be. And then you kind of chase little things as they pop up. And, thankfully for us, Juan is such a compelling character, that became, a storyline, that we were able to follow. And, it was important to us, spending time in the classroom, trying to figure out how do we, bring in the current generation, how do we, hopefully create a story that will not just be, a historical story, but also, present times story.
I just want to add a comment here. So particularly for the undergrads who probably don't know the story behind the turkey.
I was about to get there.
Okay, well, you probably don't know that, but I don't know exactly when the article was done in the Globe. I think at one point, Mike had a reputation locally of kind of collecting turkey bones,
carcasses.
turkey carcasses, and making soup. And someone put it in the Globe, and then it was like, I don't know how many he got, like lots, right?
The freezer was like
20 the next day.
The name.
carcass.
Dukakis.
So I give the real credit for taking that experience and then kind of weaving it into the recipe for democracy.
Well, to his credit, he resisted initially the idea of filming any turkey soup. Thankfully, I think we earned each other's trust, or we earned your trust. And on that cold winter day where, I think the city was shut down and, we kind of rushed in to be able to film, the governor and Kitty opened their doors and, shared some precious moments with us. So.
Okay.
Mission to soup. Well, I think we're getting close to the end of time. Any questions? Last chance. Go on.
As somebody who works full time and is thinking about pursuing a PhD, I know you made that choice, but I'm still trying to weigh it between full time and being school. It's not really feasible to just do study, so I'm wondering how that kind of worked.
We usually need to talk to each other.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you. So, I didn't have a lot of money, and I was lucky enough to have a partner that had a full-time job. So there's a degree of privilege there, right? When I was here, I had funding, and thanks to Chris, I was able to work for his research team and get a small stipend that way. And so, yeah, and for context, I didn't leave right away. It wasn't until I was really getting close to the point where I was writing the dissertation that I was able to make that leap. So I think the two can definitely be done. I just knew for me it wasn't happening. But I'm happy to chat more. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Well, I'm mindful of the time, and we have to get out of here because somebody's coming at 6:30. So I want to, it's typical Northeastern. Lauren, go ahead. Lauren Kleiner, Department Chair of Political Science.
I just wanted to say I was teaching a class today for capstone seminar students, and a couple of our students are here, and it was tough. We're talking about democracy and challenges and what can we do and how do we have power, and it was kind of a tough day today. And this was so inspiring to me, and I hope it was to all of the students and other people here. So I just wanted to thank the directors and the panelists and Governor Dukakis. Like, this was just such an inspiring, and I think we all needed it. So thank you. It was so time.
Makers, my colleagues, John and Lauren. Paul Fletcher over there on our advisory board for the school. Thank you for coming. Also, but thanks, Mike. See, the rest of you, the governor. So John and I and his colleagues, he was Mike. He was our colleague. He was our fellow teacher. And also kept us honest about how long department meetings are going. Saw Mike falling asleep. It was time to stop. All right. Thanks for everybody for coming, and